Trump had his first "I'm a big boy and I can be presidential" speech this week, and it had to do with foreign policy, where he laid out what his foreign policy ideology would be, who he would favor, who he would oppose. Now again, this is his attempt to seem presidential. He read it off of a teleprompter, which didn't bother his big supporter Sarah Palin for some reason, and you will be surprised to find out that it was filled with inconsistencies and outright lies. Before we get to the inconsistencies, we want to give you a sense of who he is when it comes to foreign policy. So here's a clip of the speech.
No country has ever prospered that failed to put its own interests first. Both our friends and our enemies put their countries above ours. And we, while being fair to them, must start doing the same. We will no longer surrender this country or its people to the false song of globalism. The nation state remains the true foundation for happiness and harmony. I am skeptical of international unions that tie us up and bring America down, and will never enter. And under my administration, we will never enter America into any agreement that reduces our ability to control our own affairs.
Really fast, when you get a chance, watch that clip again. He's really bad at reading off of a teleprompter. Not that he's not getting through the sentences, but anything that makes him interesting to listen to is gone. His personality is gone. I hope that he sticks with it.
That's part of the reason why his primary victory speeches are off the cuff and just pure madness and chaos, right?
It's just bad. And look, I'm not good. It's difficult to do, but he's apparently not good either.
I know.
It's good to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so look, the general theme is America first.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to worry about the rest of the world.
Yeah.
There's a version of that some Democrats might like not being involved in conflicts in the Middle East, perhaps.
Yes.
That would be cool. TPP's bad. There are areas where you could theoretically focus on America first that a lot of Americans would get behind. I think some will even get behind that, unfortunately. But it doesn't mean that our priorities need to be screw the rest of the world. We're going to put walls up. We're not going to allow any refugees in. Like, there's a version of America first that is not, hey, we're going to get our shit together before we engage with the world anymore. There's just screw you. Well, and that's what he's got.
That's exactly right. And there's a good middle ground between the mess that we're involved in now and being complete isolationists, right? Mm-hmm. So the libertarian ideology of not getting involved in foreign affairs has always been appealing, but there's a reason why we need political allies on an international scale, right? There's a reason why we give foreign aid. I know this is a very realist ideology, and some don't really agree with me because they feel like, oh, the country is good and we do want to help others with foreign aid just out of the kindness of our hearts. I don't buy into that. We help others in foreign aid because we need allies, right? Mm. And part of the reason why we need allies is because we do have this military-industrial complex that leads to perpetual war, and we want to have certain countries on our side so we, don't get our asses handed to us. But at the same time, we absolutely do need allies. We need to know that we have coalitions and we have other countries that will defend us and help us protect ourselves. But I do believe that the first real use, the primary use of our military is to keep us safe. And that's not what we've been doing. So again, I've talked about this a little bit before. Donald Trump manages to sprinkle some truths in between all of these crazy, outrageous statements. And I think some people hear those truths and they completely ignore or neglect the crazy things he says. And they think, yeah, that's the candidate for me. But he would be a nightmare. And let me also say that you cannot be misled into believing that this man has ever really given any real thought to foreign policy. Maybe he has when it comes to trade agreements because of, the nature of work he does. But when it comes to foreign policy, when it comes to our decisions to do airstrikes, to send in ground troops, or to go to war in general, he has not thought about those things.
No. And now he lies about the little bit of thinking that he did. So he said in the speech that he was against getting rid of Hosni Mubarak of Egypt. Mm-hmm. It's not true. In 2011, there's a video of him saying it's a great thing, and he was praising Obama during it, by the way. He lies about the little bit of thinking that he's done. But I love what you said about the sprinkling the truth. Mm-hmm. It remains true in this. Most people will not get the actual news about what he really said, the things that contradict, and so that's why we're going to cover it in this video. Because the problem with everything that he said there about being America first and not wasting our time and money abroad is that he's not even being honest. He called himself previously the most militaristic man in the world. He talks constantly about going after ISIS nonstop, voraciously. He will not get us out of those conflicts. He's made that very clear. So all of this isolationism stuff, you'll get the bad part of it, sure, I guess, but the good part of it, he's not even being honest about that. So let's talk about some of the contradictions. I'm going to read through these kind of fast, but feel free to jump in at any time because I know we're running out of time a little bit. He said first, some groups will never be anything but our enemies. The world must know we do not go abroad in search of enemies, that we are always happy when old enemies become, that ends with friends. Then he says, America is going to be a reliable friend and ally again. The countries we're defending, they must help out with the cost of the defense and all of that. The idea that some groups will never be anything but our enemies. The world must know that we do not go abroad in search of enemies. Okay, very clear there. Let's go to graphic 19. We are focused on creating stability in the world. We must, as a nation, be more unpredictable.
Wow.
I like that good old-fashioned unpredictable stability. That's what I like in terms of the orientation of world powers.
This man is madness.
Next, President Obama has weakened our military. And then he explains how he did it, by spending trillions of dollars on planes, missiles, ships, and equipment, building up our military to provide a strong defense for Europe and Asia. So what is it? Has he starved the military, or have we spent trillions? Or are you admitting that spending trillions is still starving it, which seems insane? Next, Iran cannot be allowed to have a nuclear weapon. And then, our nuclear weapons arsenal, our ultimate deterrent, has been allowed to atrophy and is desperately in need of modernization and renewal. Now, he's not going to see that as a contradiction.
Yeah, a lot of people are not going to see that as a contradiction because they're under the assumption that it's completely okay for the United States to have nuclear weapons, but other countries are not allowed to have nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
It's just a really interesting way of thinking about defense on an international scale, especially coming from a country that believes that arming every single American is the best way to keep Americans safe.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and also, of course, you need to understand that one of the reasons countries put in the insane amount of time and energy and expense to make a nuclear weapon, and it is a massive ordeal, it costs a ton, is specifically because of the countries that already have it.
Exactly.
So us having that deterrent causes Iran to want it. And yet he's against the deal that stopped them from having it for a number of years. Finally, and then there's ISIS. I have a simple message for them. Their days are numbered. I won't tell them where, and I won't tell them how.
Because
and
you
then,
don't know where or
he doesn't
how.
know when or how. And then, war and aggression will not be my first instinct. So we'll never know what his previous ones were with ISIS, but he is there now. Look, his supporters probably aren't going to care. They're the ones that are convinced by him saying, I'm not going to tell you anything about what I will do because I don't want our enemies to know it. I want to surprise them. And they find that convincing, which is depressing by itself. But this is his, look, I'm a serious candidate. And this is serious insofar as Republican speeches about foreign policy generally are. But this is a demonstration of why he can't be allowed to be president. He's a crazy person who doesn't know what he's talking about.
But also keep in mind that the saddest part about all of this is that all his supporters are going to hear is his one statement of putting America first.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all they're going to hear. They're not going to pay attention to the contradictions. They're going to reject the evidence that proves that this guy has no idea what he's talking about.
Yeah.
And that's the depressing part for me.